Okay, so today we're going to start the last method of solving systems of equations. So we did graphing, we did substitution. This is the second algebraic method and the final method we're going to talk about. Okay, we're going to do this in a couple steps, so we're going to just start with the basic ones today. And that method is called, the method we're doing is called the elimination method. Okay, so the elimination method is probably the most useful. It's the most versatile. It's, if you're only going to know one, I would know elimination. But it is the last one we teach because graphing has its place for certain problems and substitution has its place for certain problems. But again, elimination is probably the most all-around method. Alright, so we're just going to start with the steps of elimination method. Substitution method was called substitution method because it used substitutions. Elimination method also has a substitution in there, but it has an elimination first. Elimination just means the variable goes away. We're canceling something out. So in elimination method, we want all the problems to start in the same way. We want to line up our problems in standard form. We're going to line up the two equations in standard form. And remember that standard form is ax plus by equals c. That could be our first equation. And then the second equation would be dx plus ey equals f. Now, does it have to be in standard form? No. But what we do want is we want our variables to be lined up. We want x over x and y over y and the constant over the constant. So, standard form is just the most, common form of that. So it doesn't necessarily have to be standard form, but you do want your x's above your other x's, your y's above your other y, and your constants above each other. Alright, so once you have that, then you have to do the elimination part. You're going to choose either the x value or the y value to eliminate. So you're going to choose either x or y to cancel or eliminate. Well, how do you know which one to pick? Do you want to pick x or do you pick y? How do you know? What we want is we want the coefficients to be the same. So you want to pick whichever ones have the same coefficients. So in our, our standard form example up there, if a and d were the same, okay, or if b and e were the same, we would cancel. Okay. So we want the coefficients to be the same, the numbers in front of the variables to be the same. Okay, so you want the coefficients to be the same. And again, what we're referring to here is we want the numbers in front of x or the numbers in front of y to be the same. Okay? If they're the same in front of x, we're eliminating x. We're canceling out x. If they're the same in front of y, we're canceling out y. Once you decide which variable you're going to cancel, you're going to eliminate the variable by adding or subtracting the equations. You're going to eliminate meaning cancel. So eliminate the variable by adding or subtracting the equations. Because again, it's the same problem we had with substitution. We don't know how to solve an equation that has two variables. We can only solve equations that have one variable. So we need to force it to have one variable by eliminating the other. Alright, so we picked the variable to eliminate. And now we're adding or subtracting the equations together, which you're allowed to do, to eliminate the variable. Well, how do we decide? How do we decide if we're going to add or we're going to subtract? Well, it all comes down to the numbers in front of the variable, the coefficients. You're going to add if the signs are opposite. We'll add if the signs of the coefficients are opposite. So if they're opposite, they eliminate. So what does the opposite mean? Well, one's positive, one's negative. So negative 5 and positive 5. If you add those together, you get 0. That's what we want. Your other option would be subtract. We're going to subtract if the signs are the same. Okay, so if the signs in front of the variables are the same, you subtract. So I like to remember this one, SSS. So same sign, subtract. So you subtract, the signs are the same. same sign, subtract. And then opposites you add. Or in my head I always think apposites. Apposites add, not a word, but that's what I think. Opposites add, same sign, subtract. And you're just going to do that top to bottom. So you do the top equation plus or minus the bottom equation. At this point, you're going to have one variable. You're going to have one equation with one variable, and you solve that equation. So you solve for the remaining variable. Solve for the remaining variable. After this step, you're going to know x or you're going to know y. You're going to know one of the variables. And then your last step would be to substitute that variable into either equation to solve for the other. So we'll substitute the known variable into either equation. We'll say any equation. And solve for the last variable. So substitute the known variable into any equation and solve. Okay, so if you found x first, you'd plug x into any equation and then solve for y. If you found y first, you'd plug it in for y and solve for x. And as always, express your answer as an ordered pair. So express your answer as an xy ordered pair, because again, graphically, what we're doing is we're finding the point of intersection. So x comma y. Now again, if you find y first, that doesn't mean it goes first. It always is x and then y. Okay. So, again, it looks like a lot of steps, but when you're actually doing these, it's not that bad. So line up, make sure your equations are lined up. A lot of times they already will be. Pick what you're going to cancel, x or y, depending on if the numbers in front are the same. Okay. Eliminate the variable by adding or subtracting. If they have opposite signs, you're adding. If you have the same sign, they're subtracting. Again, the sign refers to the number in front of the variable. Solve for the remaining variable, substitute, back in, and then solve for the last variable. So let's look at a couple examples. Okay, so this first example, we got top equation, x minus 2y equals 7. Bottom equation, 3x plus 2y equals 5. So we're doing this elimination method. All right. Well, go through the steps we just wrote down. Are they lined up in standard form? Yes, they are. They're both in standard form. You got x's above x's, y's above y's. Everything's lined up. Pick which variable you're going to eliminate. Again, how do we decide? Are we going to eliminate x's or y's? Well, you pick whichever variable has the same number in front. So in this one, they both have y's in front, or the y's both have 2's in front. So we're going to eliminate y. So we're going to eliminate the y variable. How do we eliminate the y variable? Well, we have to decide, are we going to add or subtract? So we picked y, now we're looking at the signs in front of those numbers. So on top we have -2, we have -2, and on the bottom we have +2. Those are opposite, -2 and +2. So opposite signs means we're going to add. Okay. And you don't have to rewrite anything, we're just going to add these vertically. So I like to put a big plus sign out here. Okay. And then a line underneath. So just add your two equations vertically. Again, we're going to be left with one equation and one variable because the other variable will eliminate. Okay, so add your x's together. You got 1x on top plus 3x on the bottom gives you 4x. Add your y's together. -2y plus 2y eliminates. That's the point. Got your equal sign. And then 7 plus 5 is 12. So add your x's, add your y's, add your constants. All right, well, what are we left with? We're left with an equation. 4x, 4 times x equals 12. Solve for x. Okay. We're solving for x. This is a one-step equation. We're going to divide both sides by 4. And we're left with x equals 3. So that was easy. We found x. It's not our answer, but it's part of our answer. Now you have to pick. Pick either of the equations. It doesn't matter which one you pick. You can pick the top equation, you can pick the bottom equation. I'm going to pick the top equation, which was x minus 2y equals 7. And then we're going to plug in the variable that we've just found. We found x. So instead of x minus 2y equals 7, we could say that 3 minus 2y equals 7. because we know what x is. And now this is just a two-step equation to solve for y. We have one equation, one variable, solve for the variable. So on this one we'll subtract 3. Sometimes you might have to simplify a little bit. This one we don't. We're left with negative 2y equals 7 minus 3 is 4. And then solve for your missing variable, negative 2. Divide both sides by negative 2. And you get y equals 4 divided by negative 2 is negative 2. Okay. So we found x, we just found y. Our answer is the ordered pair x comma y, 3, negative 2. Alright, so elimination, it's not that bad. A lot of people like this one a lot better. Just pick what you're eliminating, decide if you're going to add or subtract, and then solve. So get another one. Okay, so the second example, top equation x plus 2y equals 2, bottom equation x minus 4y equals 14. Again, already lined up, already in standard form. So all we have to do is decide which variable we're going to eliminate and how we're going to eliminate it. Okay. So we look at the numbers in front of x. There are no numbers in front of x. Now again, remember, if there's not a number in front of x, it's not 0 to 1. So really we have 1x and 1x. Those are the same. And just to double check, look at the numbers in front of y. They're different. So we're going to pick the ones that are the same. We're going to eliminate x. Eliminate x. And how are we going to eliminate x? Well, they're both positive 1. Plus 1 and plus 1. So same sign, subtract. So we're going to eliminate x by subtracting. Now again, just work with the problem. Put the line underneath. Put a big minus sign. That means we're going to subtract the top equation from the bottom equation. 1x minus 1x eliminates. Careful with the subtracting though. Subtracting, a lot of people mess up. We got 2y on top minus negative 4y on the bottom. So 2y minus negative 4 is 6y. Okay. And then 2 minus 14 is negative 12. So again, be a little careful when you're subtracting, especially subtracting negatives. Alright, we're left with an equation with one variable, 6y equals negative 12. Solve for y. 6 times y equals negative 12. Divide both sides by 6, and we're left with y equals negative 2. Okay. So we haven't done much work yet, but we already know half the answer. We know one of the variables. So we know x, we still have to find y. To find y, pick one of the equations. Doesn't matter which one you pick. You pick the top one, you pick the bottom one. I usually pick whichever ones have small numbers and positive signs. Okay, because again, negatives people tend to mess up. So if there's only pluses, if there's positive numbers, I'm picking that one. So in this one, I'm picking the top equation. X plus 2y equals 2. Okay. Well, y is part of the equation, but I know what y is. Y is negative 2. So I'm going to go ahead and substitute. Instead of writing y, I'm going to write negative 2. Okay, because that's what y is. Alright, so you rewrite the problem. X plus 2y equals 2. But instead of y, we're substituting in the value of y, which is negative 2. So x plus 2 times negative 2 equals 2. And then simplify and solve. Simplify, we've got to multiply these two together. So we're going to have x plus 2 times negative 2, which is negative 4, equals 2. So x plus negative 4 equals 2. Solve for x. So add 4 to both sides. And x equals 6. So we got x, we got our y. We write it as an ordered pair, x comma y. Again, x goes first, even though we found it second. 6, negative 2 is the answer. Alright, and those are the basics of elimination. Again, pick which variable you're going to eliminate, whichever one has the same number in front. Decide if you're going to add or subtract. Same sign, subtract. Opposite signs, you add. Add the equations or subtract the equations, and then go through your solving process. Again, that is elimination, at least the basics of it. There are kind of a little bit more, different types of problems that we're going to talk about next, but these are the basics for elimination.